What's up and welcome back to the Gridiron with Chance Aspen. Make sure you subscribe down below and like this video. Now, enjoy this video. Alright, welcome back to another NFL Division Deep Dive. This one is on the NFC North. If you don't know by now how my Division Deep Dives work, I give you everything I like about each team, everything I don't like, and then I give my prediction on what I think their record is going to be this season. So let's start with the Chicago Bears. Let's start with everything I like about the Bears. The first thing, their overall offensive talent. With guys like DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen coming over from the Chargers, Rome Odunze, who they got in the draft, DJ Moore, who they had last year, Cole Kmet. I mean, this overall offensive talent, it's some of the best in the NFL. And it's going to help out this young quarterback in Caleb Williams. Yes, we all know Caleb Williams can do things that most guys can't do. But if you want to help him out, what do? You get him offensive talent around him so he doesn't feel like he has to do it all by himself. That's important for the Bears. The fact they got this around a rookie quarterback, it's probably the most offensive skill a rookie quarterback has had around him in a very long time. And it's great for Caleb Williams, and it's great for the Bears. They already have the pieces around their rookie quarterback. The next thing I like, Caleb Williams' ability to make magic happen. We only got to see him a little bit in the preseason, but when he was out there, he created magic. He can just do things, like I talked about earlier, that most guys can't do. Most guys can't create the things that he can create. Most guys can't roll this way, roll back this way, roll back this way, sprint this way, dodge this defender, dodge that defender, and chuck a pass 50 yards down the field. Like, most guys can't do that. Or roll out the opposite way, flip his hips, and chuck a ball on a dime 50 yards down the field. Like, he's one of the most talented guys already in the NFL. And he's just a rookie. But his talent is off the charts good. I just love his ability to create magic. Now, you don't always want him to have to create magic. And that offensive talent that I talked about, that's going to help him. But knowing that he can do it, that's important. Because you need one of those guys. Like, if you want to beat Mahomes, if you want to beat Josh Allen, I know they're not in the same conference, but, like, you need one of those guys that can do those special things when it calls for it. The next thing, I love the Bears' two linebackers, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. I love those two guys. They came over in free agency last year. They played great. They're great linebackers, sideline to sideline, both physical players. I like both those linebackers as kind of the cornerstones of this Chicago Bears defense. Speaking about defense, Jalen Johnson for the Bears is one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. He is one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. Now, he doesn't get talked about a lot. Doesn't get mentioned a lot, probably because the Bears weren't very good. That's probably why he didn't get talked about. But if you watch him play, he is legit one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. I don't think there's any disputing that. That's everything I like with the Bears. Now to some of the things I don't like. Their defensive line outside of Montez Sweat isn't great. They don't have many guys outside of Montez Sweat who can get to the quarterback on a consistent basis, which is a little scary because now all the attention can go to Montez Sweat, and then he won't feel as impactful as he could if he had help on that defensive line. So that's not great. The next thing, the O-line. Now, I think they have some good pieces on this offensive line. I really do. I like some of the pieces on this O-line. Darnell Wright, guys like that. But it is worrisome. And they got Caleb Williams. And yes, he can create magic. But do you want him having to do that play after play after play? Probably not. Right? You only want to do it when you need him to do it. And if you only want him to do it when you need him to do it, you need to have a good offensive line protecting him. The last thing I don't like about the Bears, I'm still suspect on this coaching staff. This coaching staff is they still got to prove themselves. They still got to prove themselves. And this is going to be a great year to prove themselves because their roster isn't as bad as it was last year. It's gotten a lot better. So I think they're expected to win this year. And if they don't, I think Eberflus could be gone. He's got a lot riding on this year because this roster is talented enough to start competing. I'm not saying they got to go win playoff games just yet. But Eberflus has to show improvement. I think the Bears respond from last year. I do think they have a better year. And I have them finishing this season at 9-8. Let's move along in the NFC North over to the Detroit Lions, the defending NFC North champs. Let's start with what I like. I love the Lions. And I love their offensive line. It all starts with their O-line. They're big, they're strong, they're physical. Their offensive line is elite. It's one of the better offensive lines in all of football. They can run the ball with the best of them. They can grind out games, which is important. That's important to me. You know, when you get the lead, can you grind these games out so teams can't get the ball back? Can you kill the clock by just running the ball and have your offensive linemen just start pushing the D-line back? And that's what the Detroit Lions can do. They're big, they're strong, they're physical on the O-line. The next thing, they have a lot of offensive skill. With Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, who just exploded onto the scene last year. He's already probably a top 5 tight end in the NFL. And Jahmyr Gibbs, who was a first-round pick last year. And all of these guys are young, and they all bring something different to the table. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. How much offensive skill do you have, but then how different is each guy? Because I think that's important. You don't want the same 2 guys that do the same 2 things well. You want guys who do different things well. Does this guy's good catching routes over the middle. This guy can take the top off the defense. This guy's our explosive runner. This guy can get 2 or 3 yards when we need him to. You know, how many guys can do different things? That's what you want when you have a lot of offensive skill. Guys that can do a lot of different things. The next thing. I love the additions of DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport. Love the 2 additions. Because remember, even though this team went to the NFC Championship game last year, their defense wasn't very good. Matter of fact, it was pretty bad, if we're being honest. It wasn't great. And really, what wasn't great was they couldn't get pressure on the quarterback, and that's why they were bad in the secondary. The only guy that can get consistent pressure for them last year was Hutchinson. But now you bring in Reader, who's a little bit more run stuffer than pass rusher, so that helps that. But Marcus Davenport can get to the quarterback. And now he's going to be on opposite sides of Hutchinson. So that's going to help out Hutchinson and Davenport. So that's going to be great for both guys. The last thing I like. Brian Branch is one of the best young playmaking safeties in the NFL. You saw him explode onto the NFL scene last year with that pick 6 in Kansas City on opening night. And kind of as the season went on, he just made more plays and more plays and more plays and more plays. And I expect him to come into this season and continue to make play after play after play. I expect him, by the time the season is over, his name will be in the conversation as one of the best safeties in the NFL. I really do believe that. Just a couple things I don't like about the Lions this year. Their defense against the pass. Now, I did say they did bring in some guys that should be able to help that a little bit. But it was so bad last year. It was awful last year. They shouldn't have made it as far as they did with that bad of a secondary. Or even that bad of a defense. It was so bad. I'm hoping they correct it because they're a hell of a team. One more thing. Jared Goff. Now, why don't I like Jared Goff? I think Jared Goff is very good, but the pressure's on Jared Goff. The pressure is on. He's got to get this done. This team is loaded. Top to bottom, it is a top 5 roster in the NFL bucket. This is a top-tier talent roster. Now it comes down to him. Can he get it done for this team? Can he lead this team to a Super Bowl? And not just lead them to the Super Bowl, can he win them the Super Bowl? That's the biggest question I have with this team. Can he do it? He can't just be average. We'll see. But I have the Detroit Lions finishing this year at 11-6. Let's move along in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers. What an interesting team the Green Bay Packers are. Let's start with what I like. All of the young playmakers in Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave, like all these young playmakers. None of them have huge names, but if you just watch the Packers overall, it feels like every time you watch them on offense, all these guys are open. All these guys are making big plays for their offense. All these guys are getting open for Jordan Love. So I don't think they have huge names where you're like, wow, look at this overwhelming talent. But if you watch them, they're all very talented. And no, they actually do have a very talented offensive skill group. Next thing I like, the O-line. They did a great job last year protecting Jordan Love, making Jordan Love feel comfortable. And I expect them to take another jump this year on the offensive line. Speaking of Jordan Love, he's another thing I like about this team. His jump, I did not expect this from Jordan Love. Because his first probably 6 starts into the season, he wasn't very good. He was okay, but he wasn't great. I would say he's about average. And then he kind of just took a jump. And then he went to Dallas and beat them in the playoffs. Stumped them. And I expect him to take another jump this year. I really do. He's now comfortable. He's the clear-cut starter. I would expect another jump up for Jordan Love. The next thing, Matt LaFleur. He got a lot of crap when Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay, but now I think he's running the offense that he always wanted to run. When Aaron Rodgers was there, Aaron wanted to run his offense. Now, LaFleur is running his offense. And I think it's showing everybody how good of a coach LaFleur actually is. It's showing him that he is a premier coach in the NFL. The next thing, their secondary. Their secondary is one of the best in the NFL. With Alexander, Eric Stokes, Xavier McKinney, who they got, Javon Bullard, who they got. It's young, so it's a little worrisome on that standpoint, but it is one of the better secondaries in the NFL, and I'm excited to watch it this year. The last thing I like about this team, the D-line. Their defensive line, underrated a little bit, with Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Wyatt from Georgia. They don't really have the one premier guy, even though I would say Rashawn Gary is probably a premier guy. Even Preston Smith a little bit, but Rashawn Gary I would say is a premier guy in the NFL. But I think they all make each other better. And when they play teams can't just focus on one guy. So all these guys are getting home to the quarterback on a consistent basis. I really like this defensive line. I think it is one of the better groups in the NFL. Couple things I don't like. The linebacker position. Don't love it. Don't love it. They have Walker, but he's up and down. He can play good sometimes, and then the next game he doesn't play well. He can be up and down, up and down, up and down. It can be a little tough to watch him sometimes. Sometimes he's very good, and other times he's not very good. And then just something that scares me a little bit. They don't really have a real number one receiver. Now, I know they said it doesn't matter, but to me it does. Because when it's 3rd and 8, you want to know who you're going to. Who are you going to throw that football to on 3rd and 8? Big moment. The great teams, in my opinion, don't just throw it to who's ever open. Like the Chiefs, it's probably going to be either Mahomes' run or a pass to Travis Kelce. You know? Like in a big spot, you need to know who you're giving that football to, who you're throwing that football to. So that's a little worrisome. But I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be a very good team this year, and I have them at 10-7. The last team in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start with what I like. They got the best receiver in the NFL. Don't get that twisted. Justin Jefferson is still the premier receiver in the NFL. His ability to get open on a consistent basis is so fun to watch. I did not expect this from Jefferson coming out of LSU. And he's exploded onto the scene, and he's one of the better players in the NFL. Not just one of the best receivers, but one of the better players in the NFL. The next thing. The reason why Jefferson is getting open so much is because of their coach. Kevin O'Connell. I always worry about coaches who come from that Sean McVay tree, because is it really you or is it Sean McVay why you got hired? But Kevin O'Connell is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. And he's a play caller. So that makes him even better. When you're a play caller and your side of the ball that you're calling plays for is doing well, that takes you up a few rings as a premier coach. Because his offenses are always brilliant, they're always creative, and they're fantastic to watch. Next thing. Bringing in Jonathan Grenard and Stephon Gilmore. Now, Stephon Gilmore is a little bit older, so I do worry about that a little bit. But if you watched Jonathan Grenard last year on the Houston Texans, he was, I'm not saying top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, but I would say top 10, top 15 pass rusher in the NFL. Like, he's a big signing for this Minnesota Vikings team. I don't think people talked about it enough, but he is a premier pass rusher in the NFL. And then Gilmore is a little bit older, but he's still a hell of a cornerback. He can still shut down some guys. He's not going to do it as elite as I think he once did it, but he's still one of the better corners in the NFL. And the last thing, the offensive talent, not just Justin Jefferson, we already talked about him, but TJ Hawkinson, probably a top 7 tight end in the NFL. Jordan Addison, young still, but he did impress last year. And then Aaron Jones, who they got from the Green Bay Packers, who can do a lot of different things in an offense with an offensive coach who's very creative, who's going to get him the ball in very different ways. So I really do like their offensive talent overall, not just Justin Jefferson. Some things I don't like about the Minnesota Vikings. Their quarterback situation. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy got hurt. He's out for the year. And now they're going with Sam Darnold. Some people are high on Sam Darnold. I'm not. Some people think, well, he hasn't gotten a fair chance yet to succeed in the NFL. Well, if you're one of those guys, you can succeed anywhere. That's what I believe. If you're one of those premier quarterbacks in the NFL, you can succeed anywhere. And Sam Darnold just hasn't. So I don't expect a very big year from Sam Darnold. I think he'll put up some numbers because he's with a brilliant coach and has a lot of weapons around him. But I don't expect him to lead this team to a playoff record. Like, I'm not that high on Sam Darnold. Some are, but I'm not. Next thing, their O-line. That's why I'm worried about Sam Darnold a little bit. Their offensive line, it's okay, but it's not great. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on Sam to make plays. And the last thing, they're in a very tough division. I just talked about the last 3 teams in this division. They're in a tough division. There's no easy wins in this division anymore. There used to be. Now there's no more easy wins. I have the Minnesota Vikings finishing at 8-9. Hopefully you enjoyed this NFC North. Make sure you subscribe down below and give this video a thumbs up.